Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 8th of April 2024, and these are the stories that we'll be highlighting during the course of today's show. We'll be discussing, first of all, the relationship between Pakistan and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in the context of the first visit of our Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif after assuming office of the Prime Minister of Pakistan to the kingdom. He is, of course, accompanied by other people in his delegation, and he has met with important personalities, whether it be the Prime Minister of Bahrain, Crown Prince Salman bin Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, or of course, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud. Important matters were discussed. There was a one-on-one meeting also, and of course the Prime Minister was also invited along with his delegation on an iftar dinner by the Crown Prince as well. How important are the relations between Pakistan and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, whether it be in the current geopolitical or geoeconomic and geostrategic context, or in general? Pakistan and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia have had a historic relationship that continues to strengthen, a bond that continues to embolden with every passing year. We will be discussing different aspects of that in our first segment. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns day 185 of the Israel-Palestine war. Palestinians, of course, have returned to their destroyed homes in Khan Yunus now that the Israeli army has removed itself from there, but what they have found is only destruction. Almost all of the area has been destroyed. Israel Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says Israeli troops who had pulled out of Gaza on Sunday did so to prepare for future operations, including in the southern city of Rafah. So when is this going to happen? Will they be able to stop Israel before it actually enters Rafah? 7 people have also been killed as Israel continues its bombardment of Gaza with attacks on Nusayrat and Rafah, with at least 33,175 Palestinians who've been killed and 75,886 wounded in Israeli attacks since the 7th of last October, in fact. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be talking about the solar eclipse, a total solar eclipse, talking about as part of this show. Let's begin with our first story, our first segment that concerns Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's visit to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. He's been accompanied by Ishaq Dar Sahab, who's a Foreign Minister, Defence Minister Khaja Mohammad Asif, Information Minister Abdullah Tara, Finance Minister Mohammad Aurangzeb, and Punjab Chief Minister Maryam Nawaz Sharif. We've been joined by 2 eminent guests to discuss this and more as far as the government of relations between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia is concerned. Let me introduce my guests who are right here in the studios. Javed Siddique Sahab, he's a senior journalist, and of course joins us time and again, and we had the pleasure to have him again today on our show. Thank you very much, Javed Sahab, to have joined us. Our second guest is Musharaf Zahoor. Musharaf Zahoor is our senior journalist and a correspondent and reports frequently on Pakistan and on the National Assembly and Senate as well. Thank you very much, Musharaf, to have joined us. Let's begin with Javed Sahab. Javed Sahab, as I said in my introduction to the show, our Prime Minister is in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, but this is his first visit after having assumed the office of the Prime Minister for a second time, but of course again after having assumed this office. He is there with a delegation, and of course this is a 3-day visit which culminates today. How important do you feel is this 3-day visit is?
Well, this is a very important visit, because after assuming the office of the Prime Minister, Mr. Shehbaz Sharif has chosen to visit Saudi Arabia, a brotherly country with whom we have very close brotherly fraternal relations. So that also indicates the nature of relations between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has been at the back of Pakistan, has been supporting Pakistan through thick and thin. Whenever we were in crisis in any sense, Saudi Arabia came out to bail Pakistan out of that crisis. That's the history. And you know, our relationship has a long history. We have common culture, common beliefs, and another important dimension is that hundreds of thousands of Pakistanis are working in Saudi Arabia for so many decades. So that is another bond, another relationship between
both skilled and unskilled.
Exactly, between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. And if you look at the statistics, the foreign remittances coming from Saudi Arabia is on the top of the list of those countries from whom we are getting these remittances. So that's another dimension. But currently, after the Prime Minister has taken the office, Pakistan is basically looking for economic assistance. That is very important, because Pakistan is facing a very strong crisis, economic crisis, in the sense that its foreign reserves are depleting, and Pakistan is trying its level best to shore up those foreign exchange reserves, and it needs support from Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is willing to invest in Pakistan in a big way. Saudi Arabia was considering a year back at least $10 billion investment in a refinery in Balochistan. Saudi Arabia is also interested in investing $1 billion in Rekordik project, which is a very strategic project from Pakistan's perspective. And there are other areas, agriculture, mining, and infrastructure, where Saudi Arabia is ready to invest in Pakistan. Before the visit of our Prime Minister, the army chief had also visited Saudi Arabia, and they had a very cordial relations and talks. And Saudi Arabia is also helping out Pakistan, is supporting Pakistan in the defense field. So I think, and you know, Pakistan and Saudi forces have been holding joint exercises almost after every 6 months. So there's a very strong relationship between the two countries. So I think the Prime Minister's visit will definitely bear fruit. I hope that both countries will take decisions to further strengthen Pakistan-Saudi Arabia relations, and Saudi Arabia's investment in Pakistan can be of great consequence for the economy of Pakistan. And I hope that if Saudi Arabia invests in Pakistan, that will create a lot of opportunities, particularly the joblessness that we are facing will be decreased to a great degree.
All right, Musharaf, Javed Sahab has kind of explained some of the trajectory of the relations between Pakistan and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. But let's concentrate on this visit. What were the important highlights so far as the Prime Minister's visit to the Kingdom is concerned?
Well, yesterday there was an important meeting. As you know, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif was invited by the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and on a dinner hosted by him, you know, and that was really important. And the press release issued after that meeting stated that both sides expressed satisfaction over the trajectory of current relations, as well as they vowed to further strengthen bilateral relations between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. The Prime Minister also extended best wishes for the Saudi King Salman and prayed for his health. And Prime Minister also expressed the desire to further strengthen the existing bilateral relation between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, as already our eminent guest has talked about in detail, that Saudi Arabia, Pakistan and Saudi Arabia enjoy a relationship which is based in your cultural, religious, as well as trade, economy and military, as well as on various fronts you have cooperation. And the foremost thing is that Pakistani diaspora, which forms about 2.6 million, and they are actually contributing to about $6 billion, which is the highest any Pakistani diaspora is sending to the country. So that is very important for Pakistan. And secondly, we have seen in the past, this is in the previous term, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif visited Saudi Arabia in 2022. And he also met with the Crown Prince and as well as participated in an investment forum in Saudi Arabia. So there are various memoranda of understanding on for trade investment from Saudi side, like Javed Siddique Sahab has put it that they have expressed interest in investing in a Rekordik project, as well as refinery, infrastructure, mining and various other sectors. So there is a lot of room for cooperation between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, and I think these high-level visits are very important to harness this potential of cooperation between the two countries. And we are looking forward that this a very important meeting between the Crown Prince, and after that on the sidelines Prime Minister also met with other dignitaries as well, and we are expecting that because Prime Minister has to return today, this for the 2-day visit, but we are expecting he might be meeting some other officials there during his
before
stay.
he returns to Pakistan. Javed Saab, there is room for more cooperation, there is room for improvement in the relations with Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and of course there are different avenues which could be worked upon. I'd like to highlight this meeting between Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and Mr. Shehbaz Sharif, which, as per the statement after the meeting, appreciated the upward trajectory of the long-standing fraternal relations and reaffirmed the resolve to further strengthen bilateral ties. How, in your point of view, can Pakistan further strengthen these ties? What are the avenues that need to be looked upon?
I think from Pakistan's perspective, the most important avenue is the economic relations and trade relations between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has been importing textile and leather goods, food and fisheries, etc. from Pakistan. And Pakistan wants to enhance these exports to Saudi Arabia because Pakistan desperately needs dollars, foreign exchange. It wants to shore up its foreign exchange reserves. So that is a very important thing. The second important area where Pakistan is seeking cooperation and assistance of Saudi Arabia is the investment in Pakistan. Agriculture is very important. The Saudis are showing a lot of interest in corporate agriculture in Pakistan. They are also interested in mining. As I've said earlier, that the Reko project is a project which Saudi Arabia would like to invest in. There are other projects also, and I think the Prime Minister, while talking to King of Saudi Arabia, will highlight those projects which Saudi Arabia, from Saudi's point of view, Saudi Arabia's point of view, are very important, and they would love to invest in these projects. So I think these are the areas, and as I've said earlier, that defense is another sector where Saudi Arabia and Pakistan are cooperating. In that context, I think the entire gamut of relations between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia will be discussed. The expanding war in Middle East because of the Israeli aggression and genocide against Palestinians, and the escalation of war, its impact on the region, and also the issue of terrorism, which Pakistan is a victim. So I think these issues will also come under discussion.
Must have already come under discussion because of course the meeting has
But
happened.
I believe that the important thing is the economy, Pakistan's total focus. And when we are facing this crisis, foreign exchange crisis, Saudi Arabia has been rolling the rollover of their money that is parked in Pakistan State Bank for the last so many years. So we need the crucial assistance of Saudi Arabia in basically resolving our current economic crisis and resolving the issue of foreign exchange that we are facing for some time.
Or Musharaf, do you also feel, because Javed Saab has highlighted quite a number of economic opportunities that Saudi Arabia is already investing in or could invest in, but do you feel CPEC could be part of that? Because, do you feel that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia could tap the potential of this huge corridor for their value-added products for the Central Asian region? For example, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, of which the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is the founding member or one of the founding members, is financing the China-Pakistan economic corridor as well. Do you feel there could be an interest evinced by the Kingdom?
Well, it is very interesting point, and we can look at this very interesting aspect of bilateral relations from another angle. Like Pakistan has a huge youth bulge, and we have freelancers. And as you know, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia under the leadership of Mohammed bin Salman is vigorously pursuing a development and progress in their country. And we are seeing that from cities like Neom to building industries on Red Sea, and from Red Sea to Persian Gulf, where and Arabian Sea. the whole of Saudi Arabia has been transformed, and they are developing Saudi Arabia. So I think Pakistan's freelancers can play a very important role if on governmental level we can be of any help to support Pakistan. They can extend it, they can utilize these freelancers, as well as Pakistan's skilled as well as the educated people. They can play an important role in development and progression of Saudi Arabia, and that can also be another avenue which we need to explore. And as far as CPEC is concerned, of course, when Saudi Arabia is is expanding its economy and diversifying its economy, certainly they need to explore new avenues, and for that matter CPEC can be instrumental, and they can utilize it. Gaza is not far away from Saudi Arabia's shores. So I think and not only
we have to take a short break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and of course we are discussing the gamut of relations between Pakistan and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in the context of the visit of our Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif Saab to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We were of course discussing with Musharaf Zahoor on the avenue of CPEC as a potential way of further transforming the relations between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. Yes, Musharaf, you were saying.
Yes, as you know, Saudi Arabia's economy is expanding. They are, developing their country on modern lines. They are building cities, they are building highways, they are bringing in new infrastructure in their country. And now Saudi Arabia is no more dependent on oil economy. So they are diversifying their economy since these developments are taking place inside Saudi Arabia.
All of these developments we will also be asking Siraj Wahab, who is a Saudi journalist joining us from the kingdom. Thank you very much, Siraj Wahab, to have joined us. Siraj Wahab, how important is this relationship that Pakistan and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia enjoy, and how do you see the relations further developing under the current government of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif?
The relationship between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan are extremely important, and they have been important for a very, very long time since the creation of Pakistan. Saudi Arabia was the first country to recognize when Pakistan came into being in 1947. And over the last 7 decades and all, Saudi Arabia always stood by Pakistan through thick and thin. The relationship, always, with different governments, it has been, it has its ups and downs as well. But overall, the relationship is governed by the people-to-people relationship. They are excellent, and the current government that has come into being in Pakistan, we already see the great camaraderie between the two leaderships. The Saudi leadership, the way the Prime Minister was received last night, the body language said everything. The warmth with which the delegation was received of Prime Minister and his entourage, the different ministers and the Chief Minister of Punjab, Ahmad Nawaz. So the relationship has always been very good. With the new government taking over, everybody is expecting this relationship to become further cemented, and it will go a long way in restoring the faith that both countries have in each other.
Very much, Siraj Wahab, to have joined us and to have highlighted the broader aspects of the relation between Pakistan and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Thank you very much to have joined us. Also, thank you so very much, Javed Siddique Saab and Musharaf Zahoor, to have joined us to discuss Pak-Saudi relations. And of course, this is a chapter that is still being written, and of course new chapters will be written as this relationship further develops, prospers and strengthens. Thank you very much to the both of you to have joined us. Let's come with our second story, and that concerns day 185 of the conflict between Palestine and Israel. Palestinians were allowed to return to their homes in Khan Yunis only to find death and destruction there. Most of the infrastructure buildings, most of the buildings and infrastructure there in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia were no longer there, and of course they were seen to be, struttering among the rubble that is Palestine. And for this moment, Gaza and Khan Yunis, but the fact is that most of Gaza looks more like a rubble as we speak, and also Israel is continuing to bombard different parts of Palestine as we speak. The number of casualties also keeps on increasing. We'll be joined by Aizaz Ahmed Chaudhry Sahab. He's a former Foreign Secretary. Aizaz Sahab, thank you very much to have joined us. Aizaz Sahab, 6 months have passed since the Palestine-Israel conflict. Israel now finds itself in a very different place from the 7th of October. It is bogged down in Gaza. It is divided domestically. It is isolated internationally to a large extent, and increasingly in odds with its closest ally, that is the US. The risk of a broader war also remains quite real. Israeli army is also facing criticism worldwide, including its allegation that it is committing war crimes, crimes against humanity, ethnic cleansing and genocide. What should we expect in the coming days from the world, from Israel?
I think you have summed it well. These four elements that you mentioned are absolutely a reality now. I think the war, the easy victory, the early victory, the blitzkrieg victory that Israel was hoping to achieve in Gaza has not been achieved. And the Palestinians have shown their resilience. So I think you are right to say that Israel is quite bogged down in Gaza. And also international support is growing for action against Israel to stem the hands of Israel. And therefore, we also see the international isolation of Mr. Netanyahu, and domestic lobbies also are becoming active because they can see how counterproductive is what Mr. Netanyahu is doing. Well, how do we go from here? What will happen? I think Netanyahu is getting frustrated. He can do either of the two things. Either in frustration, he will expand the circle of war to engage more regional players like Iran and others, so that it doesn't become Israel-Palestine war, but also Israel-Iran wars, where US would also get involved. So that would be one move that he can take. It will be a suicidal move, but he's quite capable of taking such steps. Or he could cave into the growing pressure and would be then elbowed out. He will agree to a ceasefire and move out. We cannot say for certain what he would do, because he has really become a highly unpredictable person, and the limits to which he has reached, I think he can do anything, and that's very, very dangerous for the region and for the world.
It is a very dangerous situation, but also another situation that is very dangerous is this hunger and the famine that is looming large in Palestine as we speak. More than 80% of the population is facing severe hunger. 1 million people are on the brink of starvation. 1/3 of Gaza's population, of course, as I said, is facing this catastrophic hunger. Yet Israel has yet to present a post-war vision that is acceptable to its partners, and ceasefire talks continue to remain at a standstill. What, in your point of view, has been Israel's vision of the war since the 7th of October last year? To kill and starve people, or is there more to it?
Well, this is part of it, but my sense from early on has been that Israel's ultimate objective is to create a greater Israel. And that can either be done politically or by kinetic action. But Israel has failed to achieve it politically, because worldwide there has been a support for two-state solution. And so Israel has gone kinetic with it. So if it wants to eliminate the 2 million people of Gaza, That's where it is headed. And it is going to be such a big tragedy if Israelis wants to move in that direction, because that's not the vision Israel would want to have as a state. Particularly those who claim to have been the victim of Holocaust, how can they do such a human tragedy, commit human tragedy? So I think the vision is to create a greater Israel, and I think this is an ugly path that Israel has chosen for that.
So Israel has pulled its forces out of Khan Yunus, except for one battalion after months of fierce fighting. Those Palestinians who have returned to Khan Yunus only find destruction there. Over 90% of the infrastructure has been destroyed. On the other hand, Defense Minister of Israel, Yoav Gallant, says the troops have left the city to prepare for future missions, including in Rafah. Israel's National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir warns Prime Minister Netanyahu if he decides to end the war without an extensive attack on Rafah to defeat Palestine, he will not have a mandate to continue serving as Prime Minister. Will the world and Israel allies, those who are interested in ending this war, stop it from invading Rafah, in your point of view?
Well, that's a good sign. That's a good sign that from within Israel, voices are coming out, like National Security Minister Ben-Gvir. I think those voices, you need more of such voices to stop the madness that Netanyahu wants to commit. All these people came from northern Gaza in utter chaos just to survive and save their lives to this. And now, if Rafah is bombed, then you can imagine all hell will break loose. And I don't think Israel can sustain this stigma for the rest of its life. And that's why even the hardliners within Israeli polity, and I think they're because they will not be able to sustain. Israel will not be able to. I think Israel will cease to have the right to exist. I think even the hardliners can see that. So it's good that those voices are coming out from within Israel.
I'd just like to correct you, Aizaz. Ben-Gvir has warned the Prime Minister that if he decides to end the war and does not do an extensive attack on Rafah, he will not have a mandate to continue serving as Prime Minister. He has said exactly the opposite. In fact, he has said that you have to bomb Rafah in all cases, because if you don't, you will no longer have the support to continue becoming Prime Minister of Israel.
That is awful. That is awful, because I had not read his statement, but I misheard it. If it is, I think they are creating a future for Israel where the international community will not accept its right to exist. It's such a sad reflection.
Aizaz, also, when you look at the daily, happenings in Palestine, whether it be in Gaza, whether it be in the West Bank, there are bombardments, people are arrested, people are killed, people are put behind bars. 33,175 Palestinians have been killed, 75,800 plus people have been wounded, 7,000 people are missing who are believed to be buried under the debris of bombed buildings. In the occupied West Bank, there are also mass arrests and daily raids. 358 Palestinians have been killed, thousands have been arrested. There is, of course, an open, this is an open example of ethnic cleansing, of war crimes, of a total disregard of any international humanitarian law that could be applied in this case. Has Israel, in your point of view, succeeded in its attempts, or it will be thwarted, in your point of view, in the coming days by the powers that be?
Well, I think the limits that Israel has crossed in terms of humanitarian casualties. You mentioned this high figure of people being killed and 2/3 of them being women. It speaks of the extremely low levels Israel has reached. Now, whether Israel will be able to, somebody will be able to stem its hands, I think there are signs, because international pressure is growing. You have seen South Africa going to ICJ to have the situation described as genocidal. And then we now see Nicaragua also going against Germany. So we see that international pressure is growing in many ways. And I hope that this pressure will continue to grow to stem the hands of Israel.
There are also, talks on ceasefire that have ended. The first round of negotiations for a potential ceasefire and release of captives has ended in Cairo. Conflicting reports are emerging. On the one hand, we have Egyptian media reporting significant progress, but the Palestinian side says Israel continues to reject its demands. Parties have now taken 2 days to consider the terms of the agreement. This has, of course, also been reported by Egypt's Al Qahira news outlet. Palestine has called for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza for Palestinians to be able to return to their homes in the north of Gaza, for Israeli troops to completely withdraw. A prisoner captive exchange and delivery of food aid are also on the table. Should we be cautiously optimistic?
Cautiously optimistic, yes, because Israel is coming under increasing pressure from the families of the hostages. And I think the only ceasefire that Israel wants to have is like the pause it had some months ago to get some of the hostages released. So you cannot be sure whether, even if Israel agrees to a ceasefire, it will be only for the exchange of hostages and prisoners. Um, what is there to guarantee that it will be a permanent ceasefire? So some of the neighboring countries as well as major powers will have to sign on to it, that they will hold Israel responsible in case it breaks that ceasefire or blocks the access of aid to these people. I think only then I can be optimistic about it, otherwise not.
All right, we've also seen the extension of this conflict beyond Palestine. We've seen how there have been bombardments in Lebanon, how Syria has been involved as well. Now, the United Nations Internal Force in Lebanon says that 6 months of fighting between Israel and Hezbollah forces in Lebanon have taken a heavy toll on both sides. They ask for cessation of hostilities, and because they say this is the most serious violation of Security Council Resolution 1701 since its adoption in the year 2006. How can this escalation be curtailed? Because it is going to have serious consequences if it does continue.
Yeah, I think so. I fully agree with you. And I think there needs to be a move towards cessation of hostilities. Israel cannot go on like that.
All right, Aizaz, the United Nations Security Council will also be meeting later today to consider Palestine's request to become a United Nations member state. Now, the Council will hold close consultations in the morning, because there's a time difference, of course. This might be happening as we speak, before a public meeting to discuss the former Palestinian application. The Palestinian Authority has held non-member observer status at the UN since 2012. Supporters say about 140 of 190 member states of the UN already recognize Palestine as a state, but it needs to go through the United Nations Security Council, and if somebody vetoes, then it will not pass through. What do you expect of this UNSC meeting? Do you feel Palestine will be accepted, or do you think that there will be a veto?
Well, there could still be a veto because United States has, in a way, it is somewhat contradictory for the United States to constantly maintain that this should be negotiated bilaterally. How can there be a negotiation bilaterally when one party is occupier and the other is occupied? There cannot be a level playing field for negotiation. And US had signed up to Resolution 242, and since Balfour Declaration 1917 and the 1947 resolutions, every country in the world, including the United States and Great Britain, had agreed that it would be 2 states there. So in principle, the US should accept this. But I think in order to give a leverage to the Israelis, they have been saying that because they don't like Israelis, they don't want the states to go back to what it was envisaged in 1947, which is pre-1967 war borders. So I think that's the reason Israel is being given some kind of leeway by the US. So I'm not too sure the United States will discontinue that way to Israel. But if it does that, it will be actually validating its own principles by which it had stood that there should be two states in Palestinian territories.
Aizaz Sahab, also about 600 German civil servants have written to the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and other senior ministers calling for the government to cease arms deliveries to the Israeli government with an immediate effect. Last year alone, Germany had approved arms exports to Israel worth 326.5 million euros, which is tenfold increase compared to the previous year. Then 99% of Israel arms come from the US and Germany is, of course, the second biggest supplier. This, of course, letter comes at the same time as you also pointed out earlier in the show, that Germany is facing the International Court of Justice today as well as we speak in a case brought in by Nicaragua over Germany's support for Israel's war on Gaza. These are 2 days of hearings. Today Nicaragua is being listened to by the International Court of Justice, and tomorrow it will be Germany's side. The Foreign Ministry spokesperson in Germany says that Berlin rejects Nicaragua's accusations and has not breached either the Genocide Convention or international humanitarian law. How important are these developments in your point of view?
When Israel is committing the kind of genocide it is, and as prestigious a forum as ICJ has endorsed that, how can Germany take the view that it is not a genocide and still supply 30% of arms supplies to Israel? I think Germany has gone overboard in supporting Israel, thinking that Holocaust was committed in Germany and therefore Germany is somehow obliged to help Israel. But it needs to realize, and as those civil servants have realized, that Israel has become the perpetrators of genocide. So I think Germany should come out of that syndrome of Holocaust and see the world as it exists today, because another genocide is being committed, and this time it is not Hitler, it is Netanyahu, and they got to stand with what is right at this moment.
All right. Speaking of aid, Aizaz Sahab, there was a commitment by the Israeli side following the telephonic conversation with Joe Biden that more openings will be, given access as far as aid coming from other parts into Gaza is concerned. Now, about 322 humanitarian trucks have been allowed to get into the Gaza Strip from both the Karim Abdul Salim crossing and the Rafah crossing here in Rafah, but none of them have been given access to reach the northern part of the Gaza Strip, despite the reassurance by the Israeli military and the decision to open different crossings. Why is that in your point of view?
Well, I find a kind of duplicity on the part of the United States and even some other Western countries, because on the one hand, they are not putting enough pressure on Israel to stop this bombing these places, and on the other they are working actively to provide some kind of humanitarian access. If Israel stops bombing, everything will actually fall in place and humanitarian access will be granted and everything will, but it's a lip service, I think, to satisfy their domestic lobbies and sort of project themselves as a noble states, whereas in reality they are not stopping Israel from doing what it is doing. If Israel stops to commit the kind of genocide and crimes against humanity, then access for humanitarian assistance will automatically be granted. So therefore, I think I find some kind of duplicity or some kind of double standards on the part of the West in this.
Aizaz Sahab, on the one hand, you kill, you maim, you deny food, water and medicine and of course health facilities to the people in Palestine. On the other hand, you don't even allow them to pray in the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Most of the people, Palestinians living in the occupied West Bank, have been denied entry into the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and of late the Israeli forces also raided one of the prayer halls in the mosque and have beaten worshippers and arrested 2 of them. How low can Israel and its forces stoop?
Well, they have stooped already low enough, but it's a pity that Israel has not been able to see the long-term or even medium-term effects of what it is doing. If a restive minority exists within you, and you are not able to give them the right to worship even, then you can imagine that you will always live as an insecure state. It is quite akin to what Modi is doing in India, where Muslims and Christians are feeling increasingly insecure. So I think this minority will always be a trouble for the larger state. So the same thing I think, is happening in Israel, and they need to see the bigger picture rather than compulsive hostility towards Muslims.
Last question is Asab. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says Israel is yet to provide a satisfactory explanation for the death of 7 aid workers last week. He says, and I quote, "We need proper accountability, full transparency about the circumstances," and I think that is what the Australian public would expect. Will Israel give that accountability? Will it be transparent enough to tell the truth?
Well, I'm not too sure whether it will tell the truth. It will maintain that it has given the access, whereas it has not. It will maintain that it has not killed the aid workers, whereas it has. My sense is, while the Australians and the Europeans and the Americans are talking about humanitarian assistance, and I think I was only hoping that more voices would have been raised from this. Yes, Pakistan did well by fielding that resolution in the UN General Assembly, in the Human Rights Council in Geneva, which was adopted. But, there were 13 odd abstentions. So one feels that there are still many countries which are not really holding Israel accountable. And that's the kind of encouragement Israel has, by which it is ready to commit any kinds of crimes, but is not ready to face accountability and transparency.
Thank you so very much, Aizaz Ahmed Chaudhry, former Foreign Secretary, to have joined us and to have discussed various aspects of this continuing conflict, war, ethnic cleansing, genocide, you name it, and this is what Israel is doing inside of Palestine, with, of course, no tangible action as far as stopping Israel from these atrocities is concerned. Thank you very much, sir, to have joined us. Let's come to our last story, and that concerns the solar eclipse. Now, millions of people across North America and other countries will be witnessing heavily this solar eclipse that is going to happen today. But as far as Pakistan is concerned, we will not be able to view it, nor will a lot of people ask, what is a solar eclipse? What happens exactly? Now, a solar eclipse is when the moon blocks the sun. NASA says the total eclipse can last anywhere from 10 seconds to about 7.5 minutes. But a lot of people say this is going to last around 4 minutes and 28 seconds and will last longer than the total eclipse that streaked across the United States in 2017. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's news. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new story segments separate into us, you and Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.